Is it even a great game if it doesn't have a soundtrack of absolute bangers that you make into a playlist and then listen to on repeat forever? The titles on this list don't think so. Music matters. We've been making it since the 1st century AD. It gives form to parts of the human experience that words can't. And when we're bored on a train, it blocks out the phone conversation that the person next to us is having. Truly an incredible artistic medium. And when you're being held captive by an incredible video game that you just can't put down, the music you're exposed to can really change things inside your brain. It might develop a passion for skate punk within you. Thank you for that one, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater. Or give you an encyclopedic knowledge of early 90s crunk and emo. Ah, those were the days, eh? Every Need for Speed game ever. So in this video, we're celebrating 5 great games whose soundtracks are also all-time greats. They serve the gameplay perfectly. They tune your ear to genres and styles you might not have listened to before. And when you've got an assignment due in the morning and it's already 10:30 at night and you can't concentrate because next door's doing the vacuuming, pumping these soundtracks into your headphones will get you over the line. All the games featured here are available on Games Planet, where ROG gamers can get discounts through the ROG Armory Crate software. So, if any of these are missing from your collection, you know what to do. What's the purpose of a game soundtrack? Why does a game need a soundtrack at all? Particularly if the game in question is Doom 2016, one of the most gloriously gory and satisfying shooters ever made. It's not like there's a lot of awkward silences to fill when Doom Guy's around, are there? What you realise after hearing a few eardrum pulverising bars of Mick Gordon's drop tune gent in this game is that a game soundtrack isn't just a bit of extra context, like the way it's used in movies, you know, throw in a string arrangement over the sad man crying to make sure you know this is a sad moment. No, in a game, you are the context. So, a great soundtrack like this one is all about amplifying what you're doing, making it feel even more enjoyable. It's about musical notes that translate the sound of Hell Knights and Cacodemons being torn asunder by shotguns. And those musical notes, as composer Mick Gordon correctly concludes, are dirty, angry, distorted guitars growling over hard-hitting metal drums. Doom 2016's an example of a soundtrack perfectly finding musical form to what you're doing on screen, and it makes you feel superheroic. Hands up anybody who started listening to djenty metal tracks in their free time after playing this game. Yeah, you see, just like I thought, a sea of hands, all doing the devil horns. Our next pick for the game soundtracks we love comes from the same year as Doom, but couldn't be any more different to it if you took out all the binary code from id Shooter, swapped all the ones and zeros around, and then fired it out of the Large Hadron Collider. This is Everybody's Gone to the Rapture, the most sedate, slow-burning walk through a deserted English countryside town that you'll ever experience. We've triple-checked now, and there's not even one quad shotgun in this game. Composer Jessica Curry, just like Mick Gordon did with Doom, finds a way to embody what you're doing in this game perfectly. And most of what you're doing, if you can resist the urge to throw up in your mouth as I say this, is feeling. The choir in her soundtrack sounds mournful. The strings are soft and tentative, just like you are. Surely there's somebody around in this village who can explain what's going on? No, there aren't. Just empty houses, mysterious orbs of light, and a growing sense of isolation. As a result, there's not even one note of drop-tuned electric guitar in this soundtrack, and I think that's the right call. Bonus tip: put this on when you need to study or concentrate. Nothing blocks out the world like these haunting strings and choral arrangements.
The answers are in the light.
Into the dirty and disturbing world of Hotline Miami now, where thugs in animal masks do unspeakable things to each other in scenes of 8-bit depravity. You might think that turning up to a house full of gang members and brutalizing them like this would feel pretty gritty no matter what music was playing. But developer Denaton Games knows better. It knows that the exact soundtrack to this 2013 indie hit makes your actions feel all the more unsettling. The music shifts between floaty, hallucinogenic surf rock from Sun A-Raw that makes you feel like you're driving down Mulholland Drive at 4 AM in an altered state, to moon and scattles, up-tempo, glitchy EDM, and stomping synthwave from Irix Circa and Perturbator. And it all seems to soundtrack your horrific deeds perfectly, making levels feel pacey and cinematic. Hotline Miami released in the wake of Nicholas Winding Refn's Drive in 2011, and just like that movie, there's an unarticulated longing and a wisp of 80s nostalgia to this game, and it finds that tone largely thanks to an expertly selected soundtrack. Mafia II is a period piece about organised crime during and after the Second World War in a fictionalised New York analogue called Empire Bay. As a young working-class immigrant called Vito, you're disillusioned with the opportunities the straight world has for you, meaning you'll work in warehouses or risking your neck in the war. So, like a lot of young men in Empire Bay, you make an understandable decision to get into the mob game.
The working man's a sucker, that's for damn sure.
You said it.
It might look like a GTA-style game, but Mafia II's focus is much narrower than that. It's a linear story about one man's life, and everything from that huge city around you to the songs on the radio are all about placing you in Vito's shoes. The soundtrack here really helps to put you in 1940s America. The music that you're hearing on the radio is relentlessly optimistic and cheery, and they are the real radio hits of that time. What you notice, just like Vito, is that the world depicted in these songs doesn't bear much resemblance to your reality. And then it pulls off an even cooler trick. As time passes in the game, sometimes by several years, you really feel how the culture and technology of the city have changed. The cars are all different now, with rounded lines and space-age adornments. And what's that on the radio? Rock and roll. You probably never heard Bill Haley's Rock Around the Clock and thought, wow, this sounds really edgy and dangerous before, but after the hours you spend with Mafia II's smiling 1940s ballads and fluffy pop songs, the birth of rock music feels, well, quite momentous. And that's a pretty cool achievement for a bunch of songs on the radio of an action game. So from one soundtrack that's all about conveying the passage of a few years in East Coast America to another that conveys human history in its entirety from the perspective of numerous different cultures from all around the world. Jeff Knorr and Christopher Tin, the primary composers on Sid Meier's Civilization VI, must really love a challenge. Here's another example of a soundtrack that perfectly matches what's happening on screen. In the first few turns of a new game of Civ 6, it's all very quiet. You can only really see your own tiny settlement and virgin land all around it. The score matches that atmosphere. It's sparse and subdued, but it introduces a few motifs that speak to your civilization's culture and which you'll hear return many times in new ways as the years progress. In other words, it's a score that builds up just as your cities do, and that's very clever. Given that there are now dozens of civilizations in the game, each with a score that evolves to match the period in history that you're playing, this is an absolutely vast soundtrack. Fun fact, your humble voiceover here once put it on during a transatlantic flight to settle my nerves, and not only did it work, it lasted the entire flight. Thank you for that one, Civ. And that draws our little mixtape of all-time great soundtracks to a close. But obviously, for every game we've mentioned here, there are about 5,000 or 6,000 who also deserve a nod. So help us out and name-check your personal soundtrack GOATs in the comments below. Subscribe to this channel for more, turn on notifications to get alerted when we drop something new, and hit the like button to tell YouTube to show this video to more people. Thanks for watching. We're going to get our headphones back on and turn up the Everybody's Gone to the Rapture soundtrack now. We've got another video to make.